My husband couldn't forgive my videotaped youthful mistake from 12 years ago. I never imagined that a naive decision I made when I was barely a responsible adult would come back and ruin my life. I urgently need advice on what to do because I have run out of options. My husband, Thomas, M38, is a very traditional and old-school man. He has strong beliefs on decency and modesty. I, F32, never thought a day would come when I would hate his mindset so much. I met my husband 8 years ago on the 13th of March, 2015 in Santa Monica, Los Angeles. I remember the exact day because it was my sister's birthday. I grew up in a middle-class family with 2 brothers and a sister. My parents pretty much calculated everything down to the last cent. We were always on a budget, so birthday parties were never a fun experience for us. This particular day was very different. My sister, Jane, had turned 20 and it was only right for us to celebrate her. She was already a college student by then, so she had made some new friends. She asked me and my brothers to get ready so we could go to a party. I had moved out of the house by then and was already in my final year of college. It was not Jane's birthday party, but she told us she would dance like it was. It was her friend's house party, and she asked Jane to invite as many people as she could. The party was full of drunk teenagers locking lips and swaying their hips to the music. I was not surprised because that is what I expected a college freshman's house party to be like. We were lucky enough to get food and drinks because there had been more than enough provided. That was a big deal for us because we did not have to worry about what our bank balance would look like after the party. As expected at a freshman's party, things escalated and everything became chaotic. The music was extremely loud and the drunk teenagers were either arguing or making out. It already stank of sweat and puke and I was ready to leave with my siblings. Before we even made it to the door, someone turned off the music. That caused a lot of commotion and everyone wanted to know who dared stop the music. It was definitely not the DJ because he was just as surprised. I remember not being able to see the face of the person who grabbed the mic and ordered everyone to leave. The lights were neon, so it was difficult to see properly. I was so curious that I walked towards the figure to see who it was. That was how I met Thomas. He stood there in his sweatpants and black hoodie holding the mic and cursing everyone out. He looked tired and sleepy. I stared at him for a very long time because I found his actions funny. Who in their right mind comes to a party wearing a hoodie and sweatpants? To make things worse, he had been wearing flip-flops. He looked almost comical, but what drew me to him was how confident he looked. I found him weird, but he stood like he found all of us weird. I remember how he caught me staring at him, raised his brows for a while before resuming his shouting marathon to get everyone out. I did not bother staying back anymore and followed my siblings out. That night, I later discovered that Thomas was Jane's friend's brother. He went out to jog for a while only to come home to a party. Jane's friend explained that her brother was quite strict and that he never allowed her to attend parties. I found Thomas weird and cool at the same time, but I never thought I'd see him again. To my surprise, my parents were friendly with him. He owned a grocery store where my parents usually bought groceries from. He owned more than one and was quite successful. I decided to visit his store one day because I was genuinely fascinated by his old-school ways. I remember telling him I was also at the party and that I was a big fan of his. Luckily, he found my joke funny and that was how our friendship began. We were friends for a few months and then I graduated from college. He offered me a job at his store and I took the job in a heartbeat. We saw each other every single day and with time, we would flirt once in a while. 2 years later, we started dating officially and it was great. I liked him a lot and I admired his hard work and friendliness. During our years of dating, Thomas never kissed me in public or even attempted to flirt with me. He believed that private things should be kept private. I didn't really like that idea at first because I thought it was a little unfair, but as time went on, I discovered that Thomas was just really a man who liked his privacy. 1 year later, he proposed to me and of course, I accepted. Thomas was caring and extremely attentive to me. I did not agree with some of his ideologies, but I really loved him and was ready to make our marriage work. He already had more than a dozen stores and they were all doing well. He even gave me one and I started managing it for him. I was now earning enough to support my family and celebrate my birthday how I wanted. Life with Thomas was great as time went on. I began to understand my husband better and learned to tolerate some of his old school ways. 2 years after our marriage, I gave birth to my baby boy, Jaden. Thomas and I were extremely overjoyed and thankful for our baby's birth. Jaden became a breath of fresh air in our marriage and I became obsessed with my little boy. Everything was supposed to be perfect and I felt that it was, but something threatened to take that joy away. 2 months ago, on the 20th of February, I got a text from an unknown number. The sender asked me to take a bus to the park nearest to my house. I found the text quite strange, so I did not bother to reply or do as I was told. I brushed it off and concluded that it must be one of those jobless people online who just wanted to waste people's time. Only if I knew how wrong I was. Exactly 1 week later, that same number texted me again with the same message: take a bus to the park nearest to your house. I was surprised to see the message again, but I did not do anything about it. I just imagined that the sender would eventually get tired and leave me alone. But no, the sender kept texting. Another week later, I received the same text from the same sender, but this time, a threat was attached to it: ignore me all you want, but I will not be going away soon. It's either you come to me or I come to you. Trust me, you do not want me to find you. Those were the exact words I found in that text. I still have the messages on my phone. When I saw that text, I was scared. The funny part was that I did not know what I was scared of. It could have been a child playing a prank, but I was still scared. I contemplated showing the text to my husband, but I changed my mind. If it was really a prank, I didn't want to waste Thomas's time on something so trivial. He was a very busy man and he usually came home tired. After another week of getting the same text, I decided to go to the park and see who the sender was. Thankfully, Thomas was not home the day I left. A part of me was worried because I did not know what to expect, so I wrote a note and dropped it on my nightstand. The note was meant for my husband. If I did not make it back alive, I was that scared. I wanted him to know where I went. That day, when I got off the bus, I met the shock of my life. The guy that was sitting on the bench was someone I never wanted to see in my life. It felt like a dream, and thinking about it now, it still feels like a dream. David, my ex-boyfriend, was the one who sat on the bench waiting for me. Immediately I spotted him. I wanted to run as fast as my legs could carry me, but I could not move. I was shocked to see him. When David lifted his head from his phone and spotted me, a dark smile appeared on his lips. I still remember how he leaned back on the bench and crossed his legs like he had won a lottery. I asked him why he had called me there, and he just shrugged his shoulders and told me he knew I'd come. I turned around to leave, but he grabbed my elbow and stopped me from walking any further. He told me he had something important to say to me and that I needed to hear what it was. I knew that I should not have waited, but I was curious. If he had gone through the trouble and dedicated a month to sending me messages, maybe he truly had something important to say. David only came to shatter my life and ruin the home I worked hard to build. He gave me his phone and asked me to watch a video. My video. Our video. It was a sex tape. Yes, you read that right. It was my sex tape. It was a video of me and David having sex at his house. We made that video when we dated many years ago. I was just 20 years old back then and I thought I had met my husband. I was naive like all other young girls who thought they would marry their first boyfriends. I never thought that video still existed until then. Before David showed me the video, my mind never crossed it. It was such a long time ago that I forgot all about it. David and I were childhood friends who attended the same high school. We did not date until I was 18. He was the first guy I ever got intimate with. All my firsts were with David. I believed that I was honestly in love with him. I did everything he wanted me to do. He was my first boyfriend, so I wanted to please him. It did not help that David would also share his lunch with me once in a while. That was a big deal because it saved my lunch money. He would also get me little gifts once in a while. As a girl who grew up cherishing her last cent, I believed that David was all I needed in life. One day, David asked me to do a video with him. I initially thought it was just a normal video, but when I got to his house, he told me it was a sex video. His parents were not home and he was an only child, so we practically had the house to ourselves that day. It was almost like he planned it all. At first, I was against it because I didn't really like the idea of doing anything intimate in front of a camera, but David assured me that there was no difference. He told me to imagine the both of us alone without the camera. To be honest, I did not think it was a big deal back then. He was my boyfriend and I loved him. I agreed to make the video with him because a part of me was excited. Yes, I was excited at the concept of shooting an intimate video with David. We made the video that day and then we watched it together. I told David to delete the video that very moment because we already watched it and saw what it was like. He promised he would after he watched it one more time. I decided to wait and watch it with him before he deleted it, but then he got defensive and accused me of not trusting him. That made me change my mind because I did not want to upset him. I went back home and texted him later that day asking if he deleted it. He told me he did, and so I moved on and forgot all about it. Barely 2 months after we made the video, I caught David cheating on me, and so I broke up with him. I was really broken and hurt from the breakup. I could not believe that a guy that claimed he loved me so much could do that to me. It took me months to get over him and I promised myself never to see him again. Thankfully, his parents got divorced, they raised a heartbreaker. And he moved to another country with his mother. I forgot all about David months later and I moved on with my life. So, imagine my surprise when I met him at the park that day. Not only that, the fool had the audacity to show me our sex tape. A video he promised me he deleted was still on his phone. I practically cursed the life out of him and asked him to delete the video, but he refused. He threatened to show my husband the video if I didn't do as he said. Apparently, David's mother abandoned him when she could not afford the life of a single mother. David then went into the streets and joined a gang for survival. He got into trouble with a drug dealer and he needed to pay the sum of $10,000. David ran back to Los Angeles to hide, and when he heard I was now married to Thomas, he decided to blackmail me. I could not believe I dated a fool like him in my life. He wanted to use me as bait for a mistake he made? Where would I get $10,000 from? How could I take that kind of money without Thomas knowing? Even if I could, why would I give it to David? Those were the questions I asked myself all through the bus ride back home. I could barely sleep that night and I was extremely scared. A sex tape coming out would ruin my life. I had a child to be a role model to. I had a husband that despised kissing in public. How would he react to a video of his wife having sex with another man? Those were the questions I kept asking myself as I thought about what to do. I told David to give me a week so I could arrange the money. 5 days later, I was able to get the money. I told my sister about it and she was ready to go see David with me. When I got to the park with my sister, I was shocked to see my husband standing there with David. It felt like my whole world had shattered. When I ran there to demand answers, the look of disgust I saw on my husband's face told me everything I needed to know. David betrayed me and showed my husband the video when I promised to bring the money. My husband stormed out of the park without even sparing me a glance. My sister practically kicked David in between his legs and asked him why he told Thomas the truth when I already brought the money along. David said my husband showed up unannounced and met him there. Apparently, Thomas found the letter I left in the nightstand 5 days ago that day and decided to go see what made me so terrified. I forgot to throw the letter away the day I saw David. My husband found it when I went to Jane's place to ask her to accompany me to David. I was not home then, so he got worried and went to the park. David then decided to get double the money by showing my husband the video. I cursed David out and threw my bag at him. Of course, I did not give him the money. He ruined my life because of his greed. I cried my eyes out and laid helplessly on the floor. My sister was the one who took me back home and tried to help me speak to Thomas. Thomas ignored us and left the house angrily. It's been 3 weeks and he only comes to see our son and change his clothes. I've been miserable and depressed. I miss my husband and what our marriage used to be. I can't let a mistake I made 12 years ago ruin my whole life. Please, I need advice on what to do. I'm desperate and helpless. Update. Hi, it's been 2 months since I shared my story. Thank you to everyone who told me to be strong and assured me that I did nothing wrong and it was not my fault. Many of you said it's been 12 years and it happened way before I met my husband. Thank you to the people who told me how foolish I was for making a sex tape when I was that young. I was really foolish. Let me tell you all what happened in the past 2 months. Even after apologizing to my husband several times, he did not change his mind. He told me he could not stomach what he had seen and that he only married me because he thought I had morals. Yes, he said that. At first, I would show up at the shop and try to apologize all over again, but as time went on, I realized I had to let him go. I did not cheat on him. I just made a naive mistake. It was my past, a past I was not proud of, but I still don't understand how my husband could not let it go. I realized how different we were and I knew that if he was the one in my position, I would not have a problem with it. One of my brothers was able to get his lawyer friend to sue David and get him to delete the video. I moved in with my sister and then I filed for divorce from my husband. Our divorce is still ongoing and we will have joint custody of our son. My family has been my rock during these hard times and I have survived thanks to them. My son is my focus now and I am dedicated to being a great mother. Though it was a tough experience, I'm glad it happened. Maybe I did not have the perfect marriage after all. I want to be with a man who isn't disgusted with showing his affection for me in public. I deserve better. Thank you to everyone who took time to encourage me, advise me, and judge me. It was all worth it for me.